Ladies and gentlemen, button pushers and wrench turners, welcome to another episode of Something's Broken. My name's Taylor Goodyear, and I own TG CNC Service out of Wisconsin. So this week was a little slow. I kind of predicted it was going to be. I had a week long projected job scheduled about 4 weeks ago for this week down in Virginia for an OEM, and the job involved tearing out the entire B-axis table out of a um, I call it a T casting setup on a machine. It's a big horizontal machine, and basically you have your X-axis cross slide, if I'm doing that right. I don't know how I want to do that. So you got the X-axis cross slide that the B-axis table is on, and then you have the Z-axis, and they are bolted like this. So it's two separate castings and then bolted together in the center. And the Z here is what the cutting spindle is on. So, that's your Y axis and your Z axis, and then your X with the cross slide. Big machine, pretty big machine. Um, the customer wanted the table out so they could send it out to be rebuilt. I have rebuilt two of these tables specifically in the field, and I mentioned that to the customer, uh, that I could have rebuilt it in the field. I would have had no problem doing it. I've rebuilt two with factory training, so I was pretty confident that I could tear it all apart and repair, replace whatever was broken inside. But they didn't want to spend um, money, I guess. I don't know what the reasoning was why they didn't want to go with me repairing it in the field. They just wanted to get the whole casting out and send it to this company. I don't know where they're out of, Indianapolis or something like that. And I guess this company's rebuilt this table twice already. So I guess they're experienced and the customer is just comfortable with that. So, hey, no problem. They just wanted me to come down to get it out. And there was some other work that needed to be done on the machine. The tool changer needs to be rebuilt, and they also have a hydraulic leak on the tool changer as well too. So they wanted me to get that all figured out. I They didn't have a parts list breakdown of the tool changer, and there's like a whole bunch of replacement parts there. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not gonna guess where all these puzzle pieces go. So I need to reach out to the OEM and have them get me the parts list from the factory. So they got me the parts list breakdown and whatnot, but we didn't really want to wait. We knew it was going to take some time because the factory is in Germany, so they're like 7 hours ahead. So we knew that it takes at least a day to get any information back from the factory. So I told the customer, listen, we'll get the parts list. I'll take a look at it. I don't think it's going to be that bad to do. And I'll get it taken care of when the table comes back and you call me back down here to put the table in and whatnot. That's probably going to be a pretty long process. It's probably going to take me probably 2 weeks, I'm assuming, to put the table in, geometry, 0 points. I mean, it's a big job, a really big job. And then the tool changer, of course, being rebuilt and figuring out the hydraulic leak as well. So that'll probably be a 2 week job for sure. I don't know how long that table is going to take to be rebuilt, but I mean it's irrelevant to me. I told the customer, let me know as soon as you know that they're going to get the table. Then we can get it scheduled, and it'll be easier for me to schedule it and work around their schedule as well too. So um, that took me a day and a half. I drove down Sunday. It's like a 11-hour drive, whatever. It wasn't too bad, and I wasn't predicting to have the table out in a day and a half, but I did. So, everybody's happy with that. So that table sent out, and I came back Wednesday morning, and one of my local customers got a hold of me. They had some parts that we had ordered for a tailstock rebuild on a NL 2500. So they let me know that those parts were in, and I asked them if they wanted me to come in Thursday and rebuild it and get it all lined and whatnot. And they said, yeah, no problem. So I went in there Thursday and I had the tailstock apart, completely disassembled and whatnot. And I go to look at the new parts, and the new parts are the wrong size. And I'm like, what the fuck, man? And it was me that wrote down the part numbers. So I'm like, what the fuck did I do? And I go to open up the book, and lo and behold, in the book, they have two different bed links. And the two different bed links determine the size of the tailstock. And the tailstock, obviously, size determines the size bearings and seals that you need for them. Stupid me, I didn't flip past the first page. I wrote down the smaller tailstock parts, and those were the parts that they ordered. It's okay. I was able to put everything back together. I was actually able to tighten up the tailstock thrust bearings in the back. When I went to disassemble the tailstock, the lock nut that's on the back of the thrust, or they call it a spindle, but it's basically the tailstock housing, or the center housing, the live center housing that basically is encased with the bearings. There's a lock nut on the back end, and that's how you set your thrust for in this setup. There's 4 thrust bearings on the ass end of the center housing, and that's how you set that. And then in the front, you also have, I call it a nose nut, but a face nut, whatever. That also sets your run out when you tighten it, because there is a roller bearing on the front, and that is on a taper, kind of the front of the center housing is tapered. So the more that you tighten the face nut, the more that it expands the bearing out, and that takes care of your run out in the face of it. So I tried this once before we determined on ordering parts. I did this once before. I didn't fully disassemble it. I just tried to tighten up the face nut, and I was able to get some of the run out, but it still did not feel good. So I had a feeling that the thrust bearings were going out, and in order to get to the thrust bearings, you have to completely disassemble the tailstock. Which is not bad. I had it out within like an hour or two. It's really not that bad. So if you ever got to tear apart a tailstock, get a parts list. It's kind of like a cartridge idea. It's really not that bad. Usually, if you start from the back, remove any kind of bolts you see in the back of the tailstock housing, and go back up to the front, and it's usually a cartridge, and you just pull it out, and it'll be like a whole bearing assembly with the live center housing and whatnot. So it's pretty straightforward. A lot of tailstocks, and it doesn't matter the OEMs, they're all relatively built the same. So got that reassembled, put it back in. I was able to tighten it up. Obviously, I still had quite a bit of run out that customer didn't like, but they're like, we'll work with it for now, and we'll just use what we can for now. So it's like, okay, like, I apologize, that's my fault. I told everybody it's my fault. I wrote down the wrong part numbers and whatnot. Everybody was very understanding of it. There's not a lot of times that I make that mistake, but I make mistakes. I'm not perfect, and it happens. I'm a little pissed that the OEM had 2 different bed links in the book. Like, why would you send me the book with 2 different bed links when you know the serial number and the specs of the machine? Just send me the parts list for this machine. Don't put 2 different specs in there. And I sit here and I say that, and I've been dealing with these machines for a long time. So you think I would know this by now? I didn't. I made the mistake. It's my fault. It happens, and everybody was okay. The machine's not down, which is my primary concern, is to make sure that the machine's not down and they can run it. Even if they need to switch parts or something like that, okay, as long as they're able to make some type of production off of it, everybody is okay, and that's what matters most to me, is there's no down machine. Um, so that that customer, man, we have a lot of work coming up for that customer. A lot of it is honestly rebuilding stuff. There's a ball screw that needs to be replaced. There is an Akuma V80 vertical turret that needs to be rebuilt, and come to find out, as we were waiting on parts, that machine, they were able to run it. They were able to try to limp along. Now they can't run it at all. So the internal problem on the turret has gotten significantly worse, to where now they can't run the machine at all. So that's I don't ever like to hear that. That's a down machine, and a down machine isn't making money. So unfortunately, if any of you guys had to deal with the distributor for Akuma in the Midwest, you know who they are, and they are not the quickest on getting back to you with parts. It's nothing we can do. We've tried to bypass them and go to straight to the OEM themselves, the factory, and they keep telling us you have to go through the distributor. Don't want to go through the fucking distributor. Their response time is so bad, so bad. Um, and I'm finding out that a lot more OEMs are getting worse and worse, and it's I think that we're only going to see it get worse, which sucks. I mean, you don't, not just for independent guys, but for customers. Like, they're out here struggling to keep machines going and keep them up and going, and they can't get parts at a timely manner from the distributor or the OEM. How can you sell anything without being able to back up the response time with service and parts? And I wish more customers would look at that picture. Like, if I ever started a machine shop, the first thing I'm asking is, what is your response time on service and parts? And if they can't answer those questions for me, I'm not buying their machine, flat out. And I wish some customers would involve their local service guys, like when it comes to buying machines, because we're the ones that see these problems. We're the ones that have to put out these fires. And if you ever want an opinion on what's the best OEM machine, it's just like asking what's the best vehicle out there, and I always tell people, any machine is just like an automobile. It's good until you crash it. So, but behind that, there's also service response time of service and parts. And if you buy what you think is a Cadillac of a machine, but there's no service or parts, or the response time is, I mean, weeks to a months, why would you buy the machine? If it goes down and you can't have a service guy in there within a week, let's say, I feel like that would be the best scenario. If their response time is within a week, I think that's pretty logical. I think that's reasonable. But some of these OEMs, I mean, a month. How is that sustainable for any customer? That machine is basically a paperweight, and the amount of downtime is costing you what? How much? An hour? Like, what's shop rate on that machine? So it's just, I feel like that service and parts really get looked over and not even talked about in a lot of sales um, agreements. I think, and I think that should be at the top of the list, just in my opinion. And who knows? This customer likes to involve me in some stuff like that, so I think maybe when they decide to start phasing out some of these older machines, because parts are getting harder to find and whatnot, they'll involve me or ask me of my opinion. of things of the matter between service and parts. Hey, can you work on this machine? Hey, can you find parts for this machine in case the OEM, doesn't show up when we need them to? Those are always questions that I always try to have the answer for. But sometimes I can't ever find the answers for those. And it's usually typically on the older machines as well, too. So it's, it sometimes us service independent guys, our hands are tied, because we just don't have access to the information that we need. Not that OEMs want to give it to us, anyways. They don't want to give it to us. Or parts, parts are a little easier for us to obtain than service, you know. Um, Guidance, I guess, if we ever need it, because we don't know everything, and there's going to be plenty of times where we don't know what we need to know, and the only way we find out is if we dig into the fucking problem. We dig into it and we find out what's going on, and that's how we learn. And on a previous podcast, I said the easiest list to remember is the list of what not to do. And if you know what not to do when you're digging into a problem, then you're gonna find a solution to the problem. And a lot of independent guys that are not consolidated on a certain OEM. They branch out. They're not scared to work on several different OEMs. If that's like the Bible for me, is the list of what not to do. Because usually I don't get myself into trouble, but if I do get myself into trouble, I have experience of when I have gotten myself in trouble on how to get myself out and get the machine back up and running. And I think that makes a really good service guy. So, motivational time. So, I don't know how many people, I don't know if this is really motivational or not, but it's just some encouraging words, I guess, from me. But some people might struggle with mental health a little bit. I've been through my fair share of mental health. And I kind of notice when the winter months hit and the cold hit, and us northerners get kind of locked in our house, we become deficient in sunlight. And years ago I did a bunch of research on the vitamins that we obtain from the sun, and vitamin D3 is one of the biggest ones that we get from the sun. Well, if you ever do some research on vitamin D3 and how important it is for mental health, and not only mental health, but your hormones and your physical health, it is so important in your body. And if you're struggling mentally or maybe even physically, get your vitamin and nutrient deficiency tests through. There's several places out there that'll do it. Your doctor's office might even do it as well too. Sometimes you got to fight with your local doctor to do it because they just, I don't know. I've never had really good luck at doctor's office running a vitamin and nutrient deficiency test for me. I don't know if they just deem it like it's not worth it. It's like, I don't care. It's my money. I'm paying for it. Please just do the test. But I had one done, I was 2 years ago. It was the first and only one that I've ever had done. I wasn't deficient in anything, but it was just nice to know what I seen. Now, my D3 levels were low, but I was still in a just below normal state. So I was just rocking right on the edge. So long story short, if you're struggling mentally, start supplementing definitely vitamin D3 if you're in the Midwest, the northern states, where you get basically locked up in a house because it's so cold out and we can't get outside because we hate the cold. Now I'm an outdoorsman, so I always find ways to get outside, but I still supplement vitamin D3, and I've been doing it for years, years, and I can't really say like if I didn't supplement how I felt because it's been so long that I've been doing it. I don't really remember how I felt when I wasn't doing it. But I can only sit here and assume that what I'm doing isn't bad. I don't think it's bad for me to supplement vitamin D3. I take a multi, stuff like that. So just something to think about. I know some people that I've talked to, they don't really care about vitamins at all and what your body needs as far as nutrients and whatnot. And it is so important, so important. And I think some people might find that their moods would change. Definitely their energy levels would change if they knew what they were possibly deficient in. And if you've been searching for years, cycling, trying to figure out, oh, I have this issue and I can't figure it out. Nobody can tell me what's wrong. Just maybe pick up a multivitamin. I don't know. I'm not a doctor. I don't claim to be, but just start somewhere that you've never done before. So if you weren't supplementing any kind of vitamins or nutrients before, try it. Another thing is creatine. Creatine is great for recovery in your body and help with soreness. Not even if you don't work out. You don't necessarily have to work out to take creatine. It's it. Some might deem it a muscle building supplement, but it's really not. There's so much research out there with creatine that it's a very helpful substance in your body, and just things like that. Just do some research, watch some YouTube videos, uh, about vitamins and nutrients and creatine and whatnot, and just try it. Who knows? I mean, what do you got to lose? What, $50 on vitamins? I mean, okay, I'm willing to take that chance. So, thank you guys. I appreciate it for tuning in. Next week, I have a business trip out of town. So there's no work scheduled. I'm going to take a look at some possible investment opportunities with my company. Depending on how that goes, I might talk about it. I might not. I'm not sure. I'm still a little on the fence about it as well. But I'm at least going to go check out the opportunity and see what it's all about. So the following week, I don't have anything scheduled yet. But like I said, I got a lot of stuff in the pipeline coming up. We're just waiting on parts and stuff like that. So I feel like it's going to get pretty busy once these parts start rolling in. So thanks again, guys. My name's Tayler Goodyear, and I own TG CNC Service out of Wisconsin. And we'll see you guys.